Testing 1 2 test test. Just give. You good?
Yeah.
Okay, you good? Great. Okay, so it is 6 o'clock on October 3rd, and I'll call the North Kingstown School Committee business meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to convene into executive session pursuant to RIGL 42464 for the discussion of any discussions of job performance, character, physical or mental health of a person or persons, provided that such person or persons affected shall have been notified in advance in writing and advertised that they may require the discussion, advise that they may require the discussion to be held in open meeting pursuant to RIGL 42465A1, District Legal Counsel Contract, Employee, Certified Employee A, Certified Employee B. And then number 2, sessions pertaining to potential litigation / legal advice and collective bargaining pursuant to RIGL 42465A9, ESP Personal Day Grievance. And item 3, executive session of a local school committee exclusively for the purposes of other matters relating to privacy of students and their records, provided, however, that the affected student has been notified in advance in writing that he or she may require that the discussion may be held in open meeting pursuant to RIGL 42465A8 student appeal. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we will reconvene into open session. And the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you're able, please join. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and before we do roll call, I just want to take a quick moment and have our student representative introduce themselves. So go ahead.
Hi, my name is Maggie Bush. I'm a senior at North Kingstown High School, and I'm the president of the student union there.
Awesome. And thank you for joining us, Maggie. And with that, we'll turn it over to Jules for a roll call.
Erin Earl.
Here.
Robert Case.
Here.
Jennifer Hoskins. Jennifer Lima.
Here.
Thomas Bryady.
Here.
Maggie Bush.
Here.
Great, thank you. And the calendar, please.
Tuesday, October 17th, school committee business meeting. Thursday, November 16th, school committee business meeting. Public forum number 2, information session on 2 bond questions will be held Thursday, October 12th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Town Hall, 80 Boston Neck Road. Subcommittee meetings. CLAC, Wednesday, October 4th, 6:45 at North Kingstown Free Library. Building Subcommittee, Wednesday, October 4th, 5 p.m. at the Admin Building. Policy Subcommittee, Monday, October 16th, 5 p.m. at the Admin Building. DEI Subcommittee, Wednesday, October 18th, 5:30 p.m. at Admin Building. And Wellness Subcommittee will meet Thursday, October 19th, 4 p.m. at the Admin Building. School committee office hours will be held Thursday, October 26th, 5 to 6 p.m. at the Davisville Middle School Library. And please note the following dates for our middle school community tours. On Tuesday, October 10th at 6:30 p.m., Davisville Middle School. And Wednesday, October 11th at 6:30 p.m., Wickford Middle School.
Thank you.
It's a busy month.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the next item on the agenda is presentations and recognitions, and we are very excited to have a group from the high school here, and so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Duba to introduce them to us.
Okay, thank you. First, just want to welcome and thank you for coming tonight. So this summer we had 11 North Kingstown High School students from the German-American Partnership Program travel to Germany for 2 weeks. Must have really enjoyed that time there. While abroad, they explored Munich by bike, climbed to the observation deck in the world's tallest twin-spire church, designed their own chocolate bars, saw medieval castles, learned about the history of World War II at historical sites. Students also attended classes at, hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly, Burga Gymnasium. That's that right?
Did you really say it right?
Or
Very close. Very
how
close.
do you pronounce it?
Burgau Gymnasium.
Burgau Gymnasium.
There we go.
While staying with German host families, many of whom speaking little to no English. As ambassadors, these young and motivated students gave presentations about American culture and had the unique opportunity to experience life in school in Germany. Students grew more independent and more confident in their language abilities during their short adventure. The program was made possible through the organizer and chaperone Herr Josh Zaren. Is that correct?
Herr Joshua
Herr Josh is, say that last name. Zaren, who is our German teacher at the high school, and co-chaperone Miss Christina Lawrence, who is our English teacher at the high school. Mr. Josh Zaren teaches German at the high school. He has taught at the high school for 4 years and offers the language at 4 different levels. He runs the German club that plans and organizes cultural events and other student-driven activities throughout the year. And this club also functions as a meeting place for students participating in the German-American Partnership Program while planning the 3-week exchange program to Germany. So I just want to welcome you here, and I know you're going to share a little bit more about the program.
Yes.
And we'll hear about the exciting adventures that you had this past summer. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
So first, thank you very much, Dr. Dua, for the incredible introduction. You took a lot of what I was going to start off with away from me, unfortunately, so I have to ad-lib a little bit here. But as you said, I've been a teacher for 4 years now, meaning this is my 5th year at North Kingstown High School. And this summer I had the best opportunity to travel to Germany with 11 of my students. This is the first time since the summer of 2019 that we've been able to offer the gap exchange due to COVID-19 related travel complications. We're incredibly grateful to Ms. Christina Lawrence, as well as everybody who supported along the way for making this possible. And this evening, we'd like to take an opportunity to share a little bit of our experience with you. So if you could move to the first slide, please. Thank you. You might be asking, what is GAP? You're going to hear me say it a lot. GAP is an abbreviation for the German-American Partnership Program, which is an effort supported and created by the Goethe Institute that aims to connect students in America with students in Germany through a reciprocal academic exchange. That means that we host students from Germany and Rhode Island, and then they host us in return while we're abroad. The program guidelines allow some flexibility with the itinerary that we choose. However, we must attend school for at least 5 days while abroad and live with host families for at least 10. Students experience independence, self-sufficiency, and self-advocacy while receiving a unique opportunity to speak German in an authentic environment with native speakers, no less. In a few short weeks abroad, students return with a more robust perspective of the world and an increased sense of individuality, not to mention increased language abilities. Since the program's inception, the GAP Exchange has been partnered with the Burgau Gymnasium, located in Düren, Germany, just outside of Cologne. In this time, we've offered approximately 9 successful GAP exchanges, many before my time at North Kingstown, allowing approximately 120 students at North Kingstown to travel and learn abroad. This entire experience is currently coordinated by myself and Kirsten Anders, my GAP co-coordinator at Burgau Gymnasium. It should also be noted that this is the only academic exchange opportunity offered to students in North Kingstown. While abroad, students are expected to engage in German culture and speak as much German as possible. Traveling students are also responsible for preparing and giving short informational presentations on American culture during the school day, in German no less. It's not just a vacation for them. And now with that, I'd like to introduce Abigail Sinenko, a junior at North Kingstown High School and a student in German 3. Abby accompanied us this summer and will share some information about our hosting experience in March and April of this year. If you could forward one more slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Erzi. As Erzi said, my name is Abigail, and I'll be speaking on the American side of the exchange program. The American side lasted from March 21st to April 11th during this previous school year. And during this time, we had the opportunity to host 11 German students and 2 of their teachers. During the experience, the German students got the opportunity to follow us from classroom to classroom and experience our typical school day lives, along with any extracurriculars and sporting events that may have occurred during that 3-week period. The German students also had the opportunity to teach the younger grades about their life and culture back in Germany by presenting presentations to the middle schools a couple days during the week. We also got to bond outside of school. We went to an escape room. We did a couple arts and crafts at a local arts place. They also went to a Providence Bruins game, so they were able to experience a sport in America. And we also got to enjoy a trip to New York, and we were able to visit many memorials and architectural and cultural landmarks while we were there, including the 9/11 Memorial and such as that. And throughout this 3 weeks, it was a great experience for both sides of the program, and we were quite honestly sad to see them go, but we were looking forward to seeing them again in this past August when we went there.
All right. And now to tell you about our experience abroad, I'd like to introduce a second GAP student, Nathan Roulard, a senior at North Kingstown High School and student in my German 4 class.
My name's Nathan, and as previously stated, we traveled to Germany and we stayed there for 2 weeks. We started our trip during the weekend, and we went to Munich, which is one of the more well-known cities in Germany. There, we got to experience German culture through eating. We went to a few restaurants and had some German food there while we stayed at an inn. While we were there, we also got to take a bike tour, and although it was raining, we got to see various landmarks throughout the city. We got to see All right. We got to see some rivers. We got to see some of the main the Rathaus in Munich, City Hall in Munich. And it was all really cool. And we got to learn a little bit about the unfortunate past that happened there. After we arrived in Düren, where we met our host families, we attended school, and we had various adventures while we were there. Obviously, school, we attended every class that our German students had, and any extracurriculars that they had after school. Some of the things that we did while in Düren with our host families is that we went to a medieval castle called Burg Eltz. We learned about its inhabitants and the culture around that castle while we were there. We traveled to Amsterdam with our German partners, and we got to see that big city as well. And we went on a pancake tour, or a pancake boat, that just went around the bay and had us eat pancakes. It was pretty cool.
I was going to say, I hope we were eating pancakes too.
Yeah, no, we were.
Shaped like this. I was worried.
Our last excursion while we were there was a trip to Vogelsland, which is a documentation center now, and it was when it was used, it was a Nazi complex where we toured, and we toured the campus and learned about its dark history surrounding the pre-World War II era. And yeah, so living in Germany was an amazing experience to be able to feel all of their culture, their food, how they interact with one another, and it was really sad to leave our partners behind.
All right. And so I just wanted to take a moment to thank you again for your time and attention tonight. I hope that you enjoyed hearing and seeing a little bit about our incredible program at North Kingstown High School that we're able to offer students who are enrolled in German. We're incredibly grateful again to all of those who support our program and continue to support us, and we're looking forward to our 10th exchange during the 2024-25 academic school year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to both of the teachers that are there as advisors and bringing the students and being able to provide this experience. I think it's definitely a memorable experience, right, that you're getting in your high school years, and thank you for bringing them. I'm just wondering, what's the most memorable thing that you did while you were in Germany?
Teachers can answer too.
For me personally, I climbed with a few of the other students that went with us, was it 309 stairs?
So it's like 600.
600 and something. 600 stairs. It was
A lot of stairs.
Up this really massive cathedral in Düren. It was Cologne, which is near Düren, and we got to see the city from there. That was really awesome.
That church is pictured in the top right of this photo, and that doesn't even cover a quarter of the building.
It was a very massive.
For me, it was probably seeing how vastly different the school systems were. Because for my partner, whenever she had breaks, we were allowed to leave the campus and just walk around the city. So definitely going to get lunch at the supermarket down the street. That was definitely a memorable experience because we don't have that here. So it's definitely something different.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I grab a picture of the four of you in front of that, please?
I'd also like to point out one of my memorable moments is the top picture here, which we glossed over a little bit, but this was actually after a 4-hour bike tour
That was the
in
rainy
the
bike tour.
pouring rain.
You do not look that soggy from here, but at further examination.
It was a torrential downpour, and everybody was
Can you
a really
flip
good
the
trooper.
slide back to the first slide? Perfect.
I'll make it symmetrical.
So, take one more. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules. I have one quick question. What was your favorite thing you ate? And not everybody has to answer, but if one of you, what was good?
The bread.
The bread.
I had this really delicious. It was a pork steak and it had cheese in the center of it. It was very
Yep.
good.
All of, yep. Wonderful.
A lot of good sausages too. Yeah.
Currywurst is always a favorite. Roast fried red sausage with a curry ketchup on it.
And we learned, I don't know if any of us ate this one, but we learned about a special hors d'oeuvre from the Rhineland called Mettigel that is a meat hedgehog. It's raw pork and the spines are onions. Did any of us try it?
I did.
Yeah?
It was
Not
very
the fan
good.
favorite?
No, it's not.
I can hear it, the enthusiasm for the bread and the sadness for the hedgehog. Although I am glad to hear that no actual hedgehogs were not cooking that. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for presenting to us. It's a wonderful program. We're so glad that you all were able to welcome students to our wonderful school and then get to go and visit them, and what a wonderful program that we have for our students. So I know it probably takes a lot of work to coordinate all of that, so very good job and amazing. And so next up, we're going to move to the next agenda item, right? And if the students need to, goodbye students, study well. The next item on the agenda is the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classroom Program Award, and I'm going to turn that back over to Dr. Duba.
Thank you. So we have another wonderful recognition tonight, and it just so happens that Ms. Lawrence was here for the GAP presentation, but you also are the recipient of the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classroom Program Award, so congratulations on that. She is an English teacher at North Kingstown High School. You've been teaching here in district since 2011. Taught a variety of English classes ranging from literature, taught in grades 9 through 12 at college prep, honors, and AP. You're also the advisor for the SAGA, which is the Sexuality and Gender Awareness group, after school club. Recently, the U.S. Department of State and the Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board announced Ms. Lawrence as the recipient of this award for Rhode Island. And I'd like to welcome you, and I know you wanted to share a little bit about that award with the committee. So thank you.
So I have just started this process, so I'm going to learn a lot more about it as I go. But I think it's been a great segue from the GAP program, which is really a great example of what we talk about when we talk about global competency. It's a great way that the Foreign Language Department is already doing that in our school. And so I'm doing this program with the Fulbright exchanges. Oftentimes when we think about Fulbrights, we think of these long kind of research projects. This is more like a mini excursion where we all take an online class in the fall that's 10 weeks long. It's kind of like a cohort where we have webinars, but we're also responding to messages on a discussion board. We're doing kind of graduate coursework at the same time. It's called Global Perspectives in Education. And so we're learning about how to improve global competency in our schools. It's like a 60-person cohort from all over the country. So we get to talk to people from Alaska, from Alabama, all over, and all different disciplines and age levels. And so we all take this class together in the fall, and then we'll get to meet each other in person in February in Washington, D.C. for a weekend symposium. And then kind of the final culminating experience is they send us on a 2-week exchange to shadow in the schools of a foreign country of their choosing. So there'll be 4 different options. Some places they've sent people in the past year or two have been Finland, Morocco, I think Ghana, Senegal, Uruguay, so all over. So they'll have 4 options this year in the spring and summer. They'll send us all over the place, and then we'll get to shadow those teachers, build relationships that we can then bring back to our home school, and then hopefully keep those relationships up. And I think that, you know, going on the GAP program really showed me how fruitful those relationships can be, like watching our kids talk with the German students, going to their classes, and even us getting to network with the German teachers was so valuable. And, you know, so many of the conversations I was having with my host teacher, Kirsten, I realized how much more we had in common than differences. You know, some things that feel so American in terms of school problems, I realized were happening in Germany too. And it was great to be able to talk about that and problem solve that together. And our kids were getting so much out of talking to each other. They had so many questions about American, you know, kind of culture. They had a lot of questions about gun control, a lot of questions about all sorts sorts of things they see on the news, but we're really hoping to talk to real kids about. And so hopefully through this program, I'll be able to set up some partnerships in whatever country I'm sent to where we can kind of continue having those conversations and improving global competency, not just in world languages, but maybe across more disciplines in the school. So that's the hope. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
I'm looking forward to learning how we make those connections.
Yeah, we would love an update kind of once you
Yeah,
work through.
once I've gone
So,
through the process, I'll definitely report back.
yeah, please do.
Thank you.
Wonderful, and congrats again. That's a really exciting award and an amazing opportunity. So, okay, moving on to our next agenda item, we have the presentation on late buses and the middle school project transportation routes. And so I will turn it over. No, I just introduced this one. This is me.
Yes.
Yes, we'll bring Michelle up,
Yes.
who is our supervisor of transportation. So, welcome.
Welcome. Good evening. So basically, I started putting this together at the beginning of the school year, and then Mr. Waterman and Dr. Duver asked me to tidy it up and put some more information in it. So, so this is basically our fleet. We have 21 big buses in North Kingstown for the contractors. We have 12 minibuses. We have 8 minibuses right now en route, with 4 full-time positions still available to create the remainder of the 12. We have 2 vans on order that we're hoping to get in the summer, fall of 2024. I'm hoping my golden ticket, or our golden ticket, comes up this month to find out if we're going to get those vans or not. Then we have, I also, when I got here, I was quite fascinated by how large North Kingstown was, to discover it was 57 square miles. And in North Kingstown, we are responsible to transport students at 498 square miles if they're in our territory. But you'll see that in a later slide when I show what our territory actually looks like. This is our mission statement. This is pretty much everywhere on our website. But you can go through that. I just put that on there for, we don't need that. That was another portion of it that I just put on was, honestly, it's amazing what we get done in this district with the drivers that we have, because there's been a national school bus driver shortage for years, well before COVID. COVID has just heightened it. So now, I really appreciate everything they do on a daily basis, because they do a lot in the course of the day, starting at 5:30 all the way till at night after games when they're bringing them home. So that was just to highlight it. Victor. These are the schools that we transport to. So you'll see on the far left column, these are the North Kingstown schools that the bus drivers travel to. So you'll see like Meadowbrook, Charahoe, Prout, Monsignor Clark. That's what we use our big buses and some of our mini buses to do. We also, in the middle, is what statewide does for us. Those are the buses that at some point we would like to eliminate. We'll never eliminate them 100%, but if we could get to 50%, that would be wonderful. Also, statewide helps us with transporting. It was 20 students this morning. By the time I left at 5 o'clock, we're now at 23 students that they'll be assisting us in transporting students. They help us with our special ed students with disabilities, our ESSA students, and our McKinney-Vento students. If you want to go to the next one. This is the territory that I was speaking of when I said that we're responsible to transport to Territory 4. So if a student in North Kingstown obviously is approved to go to another school, we're responsible for that transportation. So as you can see, that's a vast area when we're talking about transporting students. So these are our in-town, daily in-town big buses. Sorry, I'm trying to look at it from the side here. This is our buses that we have at each school. So we have 19 at the high school. It's what we have assigned to them, and then actually our ridership. So you can see at the high school, we only have like 60% ridership capacity. Some of the other schools, we're at 75, some of them not so much. So, and then there's some of our buses that really are only at like 50% capacity. So I'm hoping that someday in the future we can bring that to more at 80% along all of our buses. And then this is what our daily minibus schedule looks like. The schools that we travel to, how many students we move around within our district. It's quite a bit. And then we also assist with modified schedules when they need assistance out of the PPS office. So this is our current times right now to Wickford Middle School with our buses. The buses that go, if you look in the right-hand column, so when we get to the next slide, I've kept the buses in the order so you can see as we progress and we get to the third slide that the buses are still with like 1 through 8. That's what their time will be consistently through this transaction. So this is the current times right now, with the highest being at what, 30, I think it was 35 minutes. That was the highest one. So when we get to the next slide, now also this timing is according to our routing software. So that's what we're basing this off of right now, is what we currently have, and we use Versatrans. So this is option 1. So
Can
we
I just
would,
ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So the title of the slide says projection times Wickford Middle School to DMS.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that the bus is going from Wickford Middle to DMS. These are the routes
For the
of
children.
the Wickford Middle School route.
Correct.
If it was going from the home directly to Davisville Middle School now.
Correct.
Just want to clarify that.
Yes, that's perfect.
Yep.
So if you go back that one slide, so you can follow the times.
Yep, so
bus
students
route
on
one.
bus route 1, it's about this much time for them to get to DMS now.
Correct.
Students on bus route 1, it would be about X amount of time for them to get to the site for the potential new middle school.
Correct.
Okay, so just
Correct.
the title's confusing, the data.
Yeah, just, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want
Sorry.
I wanna-
No, it's
like,
good clarification.
Dropping
Yeah.
kids
Yeah,
off
no,
at
that
Wickford
is-
Middle School,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
driving
yeah.
to Davisville
Yeah.
Middle School.
I
That's
see
not
what you meant,
it
but I
is.
also see what Ken's clarifying.
Yes,
wanna-
absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you. So as you can see, that's the timing now for the first set. So then the second set is, this one is, let me just read that. I wanted to see what I put on the bottom of it. This one was so small I can't even read this one. They would walk further to the bus stop than they currently do. So I had projected it so they would walk 3/10 to 6/10 of a mile to the bus stop. And we would follow the parameters set forth in the school committee policy for walking distances to the bus stop. So you can see that the time went down, not significantly, for them to be walking that much further. They're only saving, what, on the bottom one, time 8 minutes, 9 minutes. So they would just be walking that further of a distance. Like, for example, if you lived in the Glen, you would be walking out. You wouldn't have the bus coming through the Glen. It would come to the entrance of it. Okay. So then this one was adding buses to see if we could cut down the time. As you can see, it doesn't really cut down that much time to add 4 more buses when you look at that.
And I think the other thing that's important to note is that this is factoring in the Devil's Foot Bridge closure, which we hope by 2027 would be open, which would also impact routes. So right now, Devil's Foot Bridge is closed to school buses because they're over 5 tons. In conversations with DOT, they're hoping for that project to be completed by 2025. But I know last year
There's some buffer there.
they were hoping for it to be completed. So this is factoring in the bridge not being open.
So it could be better, is what I'm
there
hearing.
could be some times that are improved once that bridge is repaired.
Do we have any idea how much time?
We did not bring that. We kept that bridge offline in our routing software.
Yep.
We did not bring it online. We want to ensure that no routes got reconfigured.
Yeah, so what we'll
So
do
we're
is
not
we'll
scenario.
we'll let Michelle finish, and then kind of our goal is to ask some follow-up questions, so then we can have more information. So that's a great follow-up one that we'll have. But let's get through all of the information, and then the whole goal is to inform us, and then also inform so that we can ask questions for further investigation study, because we want to try to present the information we have, but then also work through like things that we might want to see, solutions, opportunities, etc.
And this is since late buses have started, as you can see. So on the left-hand column, I did the months of March when we started. I think it was March we started, April, May, June. And then this was the weeks that we started during school. So if you look at the top where it says the high school late bus, so that would be the south end. And then, of course, that's the north end of the high school. And then we have DMS south end, west end, east end. And then we did the same thing for Wickford Middle School. We've had 2 late buses at each school. The middle school is quite low on, sometimes it's 0 on most days. The high school is really where they're utilizing it. So you can see all the... And then basically this is our next steps, our recommendations for ourselves, like rolling drop-off and pickup. You know, so we have 15 minutes on each side. I know that that would take staffing, but that 15 minutes is huge. When buses are sitting there waiting to unload their students, they could be out doing other runs, they could be doing other things.
Which could help impact school start times.
Correct, absolutely, in the future. Bus passes, just so they would apply for a bus pass or just apply for a seat on the bus. It's not saying that you wouldn't get one if a parent all of a sudden their schedule changed at work, or they didn't have a car, something had happened. They would call our office, absolutely, they would get a seat. But if we could take some of that from, 50 to 60% capacity and put it more at 80, again, we're being more efficient, and I think we could take on more things ourselves.
Because right now, every student who qualifies for a bus
gets one.
They're occupying a seat on the bus, and there are some kids that have never stepped on a bus in their entire time, but they're still occupying a seat and they're getting routed. So we might be able to be more efficient if we know that child's not going to be on a bus.
Correct. And then one of the other things for us too is GPS technology on the buses with cameras. Knowing where these buses are, seeing actual timing. Also, in the event of an emergency, there's panic buttons on them. They can just hit them and it comes right to us, comes to Mike, it comes to myself. We can have, fire, EMT, rescue there much quicker than we could right now. With the other one, fleet expansion, more buses, that's the future for us, hopefully. In our fleet right now, we have some that are 2011, 2014. We had 5, sorry. We had 5 from 2017, so when those start turning over, there's going to be a significant amount at one time. And then minimizing statewide as much as we can to be more fiscally responsible.
Thank you. We really appreciate it, and really appreciate all you do for helping transport the students around the district, and know that I often think of our bus drivers and the wonderful monitors that serve our students. I know they're a really important piece of what we're doing here. So know that I think of them when I pick up my children, but also just I really value the work that they do. I know it's very hard and they have long days sometimes, so very appreciative. If you don't mind just answering, again,
Sure.
At least fielding some questions. We don't expect responses. I know a lot of things that you do involve data and whatnot, but wanted to give the committee just some opportunities to ask clarifying questions about the presentation and maybe some information that they'd like in future conversations regarding transportation. So if anyone has any for Michelle, please feel free.
I have a few, and some you might be able to answer, and some, if you do get back to me, that would be great. In the beginning, and thank you again, like bus drivers, monitors, and you, and I'm sure it's not an easy job, especially at the beginning of the year. So thank you. At the beginning of the presentation, you said that there were 4 full-time positions available for the minibus routes. Are those minibus routes running to full capacity right now, or are they constrained by the lack of?
We're using statewide for a lot of them.
Okay, so if we got those
Absolutely.
positions, we could rely less on those.
Absolutely.
For the ridership numbers, what point in time are those based at? Is there like a fixed date that you use those based on?
So I used a random Tuesday.
Okay.
Because they take counts every day. So I have counts from every single day that
Okay.
the students ridership. So I can have data for an entire month if I
So
want
it's
it.
not like where we have to do student populations. You do them based on
Correct.
like the first October, like the first Tuesday in October. Those were just pulled at a random date.
Every day they just take a count.
Okay. For the ridership numbers, I noticed too North Kingstown was just over half. Do you know how those numbers compare to year over year? Have we seen a drop off since COVID? It seems like more people are picking up and dropping
I
off.
feel
their
like since the
children.
last 3 years since I've been here, now the ridership is definitely, there's an uptick.
Okay.
But I came in the middle of COVID in 2021.
Okay. So
Prior to that, I wouldn't know. I could probably get that data.
I'm just curious whether like it has dropped, whether it's gone up, like kind of what it's been. For the the Wickford Middle School to Davisville option 2 that you showed, does that mean that for that one, that like created bus stops would go away?
Which one was, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So that's the one that you were talking about where Michelle had mentioned that they might have to walk a bit
Right,
farther.
yeah.
So your question,
Yes.
Jen, just to clarify, is like, would existing bus stops maybe be changed?
Existing bus stops and bus stops, like I know bus stops kind of have evolved, like, you know, you kind of like the ones that have been mapped out from the beginning and then you kind of create ones in new neighborhoods, so those would, all the bus stops would kind of be recreated, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So what I did was I took them and I brought them to an access that the bus could access them easily, rather than going to cul-de-sacs and streets and like Duck Cove, Beach Street. Those
So
where they would
moving
go
them
down.
outside
Yeah.
of neighborhoods, okay.
Yep.
I noticed that it said like the little asterisk, according to routing software. Has there been any comparison to how that compares to like actuality in terms of time?
So-
Michelle needs that tracking thing.
I did do a time study last week, and there I got the results, and I was going through them this afternoon, and
They're
maybe
pretty
a minute, 2 minutes.
Okay, but so
Our
pretty
biggest
close.
challenge is Route 4, the red lights.
Yeah, I live there, I know.
Yeah, yeah. One driver, she put her time, and she spent 53 minutes a day at that red light, from all of her tears from the morning to the night. Yeah, 53 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was a lot.
Yeah.
That was kind of eye-opening, yes, even with myself.
Yeah.
So, but it was only off by just a couple of minutes when I went through every route. It was really,
Okay, that's good. That's good, so it's not far off.
Yeah.
And then my other questions were kind of around the late bus, and I don't know if you're the right one or whether there's somebody else for the late bus to ask those questions.
you can
Anybody
ask.
wanna- So I love to see that that high school late bus is getting used as often. That's amazing. I know that there had been talk about the Wickford late bus. You know, when we talked about adding at the end of last year, there wasn't one in existence then, and so I'm not surprised to see that those numbers are down. Is there nothing being offered currently,
Well,
or?
Today, I have to say, it was quite large.
Okay.
Wickford was.
Okay, so maybe it's, I mean, it's
Yeah.
still very early in the school year too, to
Yeah.
kind of be.
Yeah, and I think and this is kind of more to Dr. Duva and working with Mike and the transition, like I think the goal is like, you know, we gave the directive of we wanted to provide students a consistent opportunity for late buses so that they knew that they had reliable transportation if they wanted to stay late to get help, if they wanted to participate in extracurriculars. But just know that I think the school committee is very open to hearing feedback about like, we don't want to just be running unproductive buses,
Right,
you know,
right.
so, you know, like those are conversations that if, you know, as the data is coming through, like to inform Mike and the administration about, because we do want to monitor the data and make sure that we're being good stewards of the time and all of that, but also providing students with what they need.
I would also say a lot of it has to do with the number of programs that are being run at the middle schools and the high schools, and what days those programs are being run, how many students are participating in those programs, and how many students actually need the bus to go home.
Well,
That's all data that we should be looking at, because there's that, and then there's a cost that
right.
we need to be.
And that was, you know, and I know that's why like Davisville only has it on Tuesdays and Thursdays because those are the 2 days that they were programs. But that was one of the things, and I know you weren't here, Ken, like when we talked about adding this was specifically what Aaron had said. We wanted to make sure that there was communication and feedback from the administrators of this building and the teachers, and to make sure that what we were doing actually worked for each individual building, so that it
Yes,
was,
this is
you
one
know.
piece of it. So,
Yeah,
those can be bigger conversations, but from the data perspective, like we'll just keep getting the data from that. That's
Yeah,
great.
no, but thank you for putting this all together. It was super helpful.
Other questions, Tom, Rob? I just have two. Any from you, Tom?
No,
You had the one. No, you had one.
I think I got it answered. So.
Okay. And so one of my questions was, do we, is there like a industry standard of folks that do kind of your job and different things for school transportation on kind of like the recommended time for students to be on a bus? Like, do you know if that
Up to an hour.
Up to an hour.
An hour
Yeah.
is that's what we use.
Yeah. So we're actually
You're within it.
fine-ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my other question was, what is the normal lifespan of a bus?
It really depends. It depends on the maintenance.
Mileage.
It could be
Less
12
per
mileage,
Yeah.
maintenance. Depends on the manufacturer. Sometimes you might get a lemon. You try to,
Yeah.
it depends. 10, 12 years, I wouldn't say more than that.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I'm big on like long-term planning on things, and so like I was hearing you say like 2011, 2015, we but a bunch in 2017. So I was
Yeah.
thinking, okay, like so you utilizing that 10 to 12 year mark would, on average. I know some years it might be less than that, some you might get more out of, but that's kind of the range.
The standard for this size fleet is usually at least one a year.
Yeah, perfect. And then one more clarifying question. I wasn't on the school committee then, but I believe I remember this. We did do some sort of a bus pass system during COVID, right? Like where parents were able, it might not have been exactly that, but there was some, I remember having to say like yes or
They
no.
did do something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I do know that they, especially like on the days, what days you were going to take a bus, what days you were not going to take
Yeah.
a bus. They had some system. I don't know what it was. I don't know if they applied through a Google sheet. I did look at some of the areas surrounding North Kingstown to see if they have something like this in place, and they do.
Yeah.
Just to apply, just so they can.
Yeah, because I just wanted to clarify one thing, and then we'll let you off the hook. So when you're saying 50 to 60% capacity, and your goal would be 80%, what that means to my civilian brain that doesn't do transportation is that if there's 100 kids that technically are assigned that bus, about 50 of them are riding it that day, but you would like to more accurately know which students are going to ride so that you could make it 80%
Yes.
of that number?
Mhm.
Okay.
And for safety purposes. If in the event there was an emergency, right now they have a roster with 100 students on it.
Yeah.
We need that more accurate, so that way
Do the
they have
monitors-
that information.
Do the monitors take attendance every day?
They
Yeah,
were
data.
during COVID. They no longer do, but at the elementary level, they don't take attendance per se, but they check them because they have assigned seating. So they have to count the students when they're getting on the bus and off the bus, so they make sure they have the right amount.
And the other positive to going with, we'll call it the bus pass system, is one of the projections Michelle ran was adding 4 buses. However, if we're better able to utilize the scheduling of our buses, we may inevitably have additional buses free up. So the ad may not be adding 4 buses, it may be reallocating some buses. We may still need to add a bus or 2 or 3, but I think you're fairly confident that if we were able to accurately project who's going to ride a bus, that we could free up some routes.
Especially at the high school level.
Which can, again, I'll say it again, we can start talking about school start time.
Yeah.
In my previous district, when we ran transportation, we had the monitors do a daily attendance, and then we did a comparison of the riders throughout the year, so that we were able to see at certain times of the year, especially when we ran more after-school programs and sports, there were less kids on the bus. And we would use that to help us identify routes and number of buses. It's time-consuming for the monitors, but it's important data that we ended up using. We did do a bus pass for high school students only, just because they're going from Jamestown, North Kingstown, and really keep track of how many kids were on the bus. And it did help, but it was just a management of the driver as well, of checking those passes when kids were going on the bus.
Correct. And we don't have bus monitors on the high school buses and some of the middle school buses. So we could certainly do that at the elementary level. But at the elementary level, a lot of the buses are probably running at 75% capacity, I would say. There's only a few of them with low ridership.
And we know that how?
Through the numbers, the count we take every day.
Okay.
So every day
So they
when
count, they
they
just don't know
do,
who-
we have a count
Yeah,
every
so
day
you
of
know
how many
there's
kids ride that
23
bus.
kids on the bus, but you don't know what 23. Because
Correct.
we're not doing we're counting but not doing. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
Correct. And like you said, at the high school level with sports, right now, pretty soon after the fall sports, we'll see the uptick, and then we'll see which students now are coming back, and then which ones won't.
Sure,
For
that
winter
makes sense.
sports.
Yep.
The times that were shown going to Davisville Middle for the new site of the new middle school. I know, Mike, we had talked about possibility of doing express routes down Route 4. Is that taking that into account or not?
No, and I looked at that a little bit, and
It doesn't really help.
It
Okay.
doesn't.
But I do want to be clear, you ran it through our current system, but I think our goal from now until, it would be what, 27, 28? 27 is to continue to work at this, look at it, and this is kind of just the baseline, and I'm actually encouraged by the numbers, seeing the difference between what it is currently for students and what it would be now. It is not as big of a lift, I guess, in what we need to brainstorm and what we need to work on to make sure that students aren't negatively affected by the school possible change of location. Because that would be our goal, right, is that we wouldn't, have them be on buses way longer. I know parents have expressed concerns about what time my kid is going to get home and things like that. And so, I think that, we have time to look through that and think through, and then other variables are in play as well. Some of the suggestions you had, I think, were really great. And also, to Mr. Waterman's point, I think, one of our goals is to really consider the start times and how transportation impacts that. I know it's more than just transportation for those things, but that's definitely a piece of the puzzle in a large town, as you mentioned. Hidden square acreage. I think it's the largest.
And looking at option one, right? So option one would be that we are not making any changes at all, and we're keeping those routes as they are. Students are getting picked up at the current bus stops that they have now. The additional travel time is about 7 minutes, give or take. Like one route's additional 4 minutes.
Some are less.
Another one is 8 minutes.
Yep.
And there are 2 routes on here that I think we would definitely want to look more closely at, because that's having students on the bus for another 10 minutes, well, almost 14 minutes, and almost 11 minutes and 13 minutes. So route 7 and 8, right? Something, so if we're looking at this and looking at what we can do with minimal changes, there are a few routes that we would want to look at how we would make some changes there.
Yeah, we would definitely have to look at, because like you said, we have 138, and then some of those areas out there that the traffic, depending on what time of the year, is definitely impacted. But
The biggest impact for some of those routes would be option 3, and that's adding more buses to the fleet, which we would have to do a cost analysis of what that would be for an increase for operations for transportation of adding more buses.
Yes.
I think it's...
And that does change the times.
it does. It decreased them.
Yeah.
We
So I
still,
think it's a great...
there's still a route at 40 minutes.
Yep.
I think it's a good start, and I really appreciate the data. And then obviously the administration can have future conversations as the project evolves and continues. And then once we know more in November, to make sure that we're serving our students well. Going back to your mission, which I really appreciate. Anything else for Michelle? Thank you so much for presenting to us. We really appreciate it.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is citizens' comments. I have one person that had signed up originally. If anyone additionally wants to sign up, please see the clerk. And so with that, we'll have Jeanette come on up. Feel free.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeanette Bradley. I'm a local children's book author and illustrator, and I'm here to speak in support of the resolution opposing banning books. Freedom is a core American value, and freedom of speech includes the freedom to choose what speech we consume, either in written or listening form. Attempts to ban books are on the rise. In the first half of 2023, there were almost 4,000 books targeted for censorship across the country, a number many times higher than any number the American Library Association has ever recorded since they started collecting data on this over 20 years ago. It's up to all of us to protect our American freedoms. As an author and as a reader, I ask that you support the proposed resolution against banning books in conjunction with Banned Books Week. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to speak. Go ahead.
Here, can you all just pass that to Bob and Kara? We'll just have you, just so Jules doesn't have to remember. Thank you. You can speak first, Bob, and then I'll have you do after.
That's all right.
And then you want to just pass it if that way.
Robert Jones, 63 Pheasant Run. Mike, I was going to say you stole one of my points, which is prior school committees always looked at start times and always came up with not enough money. But the promise was that if we consolidated the middle schools, that would solve the problem. So you can't think about it. You have to either commit to doing it or commit to at least a solid analysis of why you can't. Second is looking at this briefing you just had, I think you have two issues that seem to be in conflict. This is based on current enrollment. Your projection at the presentation and at the 918 building subcommittee is for a 31% growth in middle school, 32 actually, but 31 at Davisville Middle. Now, my first comment is you should invite the commissioner down because you're going to be the only school district in this part of the state that is seeing that kind of enrollment in an established school. In fact, I would question where that number came from to go from 780 to 929 students. But having said that, if you have faith in that number, then these are all wrong. You've got 130 extra students who may be needing transportation. That analysis does not include them. So where are they? Where are they going to ride a bus from? So either you believe your enrollment number, then you need to change your analysis, or you need to go back and question, which should have been done 2 years ago, where those numbers are coming from. Because a 31% growth would be headlines in the state for a school to have that amount of growth in population. Go back and look at North Kingstown. It's down 12% over 10 years. Davisville Middle has never reached more than 550 students. So either get your number straight or at least use the numbers you believe in to do your analysis. Having said that, at the next public presentation, I would also ask you to do this. Prior committees and districts put a lot of money into Davisville Middle. Are we going to have to pay any of that back? The windows, the roof, are we going to have to pay any of the state aid we got back because you are tearing down Davisville Middle? That's an important number to know. So please go ask RIDE and bring that to the presentation. This is my last comment, which is really the reason I came here. I see you have an RFP for a vision of graduate on this. First of all, you're a committee that's been... Okay, then I'll just say this. It's an affront to the people who volunteered to be on your school improvement teams that have been working on this for a year and a half, as can be pointed out by the North Kingstown High School principal, that the vision of a graduate, of a North Kingstown graduate, done by North Kingstown educators, principals, of which we spend $2 million on administrators, business people, community members, even an elected official, as Lima's volunteered to be on a school improvement team, that you have to go to North Carolina or California to figure that out with an outdated model. Use North Kingstown people for what the North Kingstown community expects of its students. Don't waste money that could go a lot of other places for work that should be done by the superintendent leading through the school improvement teams. It's a shame you even have this on your agenda.
We're going to share later the purpose and how we're doing that.
Yep. Kara?
Okay. Sorry. Hi. Karen Martone, 73 Woodridge Drive. Thanks for the opportunity to just ask a couple of questions tonight. When I was looking at the agenda, I just had a couple of questions on some of the items that are in the consent agenda, so I was hoping that during your conversation there would be just some discussion about the two items. There's like three different school improvement things, the high school, Stony Lane, and Hamilton, I believe, that are having like maintenance and repair done, and it says that we're going to take that money from the general fund. So I was just hoping that there would be a little bit of discussion on like which part of the fund that's coming from, because we had a nice roll forward done in September on the general fund, and I guess we'll be expecting last year's surplus to come through at some point in the next couple of months as well. So I was just hoping there'd be some discussion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens like to sign up for citizens' comments? Okay, so now we'll move on to our next agenda item. And so the next item is the superintendent's report, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Eva.
So I just have a few items on here for updates. The first one just says an update on the for school facility projects, mainly on the middle school and the work that we're doing. And we do have a building committee meeting this week, tomorrow night. The architects are working on rendering drawings of the school, so we're going to have that to be able to present, as well as putting on poster boards, so we'll be able to display those at the school, so they'll have a nice, view of what we are expecting the outside of the building to look like, and the outlay of the surrounding site. And that's being done. We're also working on a cost analysis of a new building. What would that be in comparison to continuing to run the two current middle schools, and cost analysis of that compared to having a new middle school being being built in with energy efficient systems. So that's some of the work that we've been doing, and some of that's going to get presented tomorrow night. I also just want to put a reminder up about the next public forum. The first public forum had very good attendance of community members coming out. We were able to share presentations out on the school project and the vision for the district, and that was very well attended. So we're hoping that's the same for the next public forum, which will be held on Thursday, October 12th from 5:30 to 7, and that one will be at the North Kingstown Town Hall Chambers. And the last announcement I just want to make, are having a very special recognition of North Kingstown High School. That is being held next Tuesday, October 10th. And it's a spotlight on the high school from the Department of Education, and it's going to be about empowering all students to achieve excellence. And that there will be a few presentations. The commissioners attending, the governor's attending. Invitations have been sent out to other members in the community, as well as administrators across the district. And that is going to be held Tuesday, October 10th at 10 a.m. at the high school.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, any questions regarding the superintendent report? Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is routine items. First, I'll disclose that we did not take any votes in executive session, and can I please get a motion to seal the minutes from the October 3rd executive session?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we'll go so moved with Rob, and then we'll go with Jen for second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Jen, did you?
Sorry.
Yeah, I was like, hello.
Yeah, no,
And Maggie, you don't have to vote on anything. You're as a liaison, you just get to chill and listen and chime in whenever you want. So, okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Before we do the consent agenda, would anyone like to exempt anything from the consent agenda?
I would please. D1 through 4.
Okay, anything else? Then we're good.
E, yes.
Okay, so we're gonna remove a lot of it. Okay, D 1, 2, 3, and 4, and E. So with those removed, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? And just to make sure everyone's clear on what we're doing, that would just be B and C.
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and so that is all set. And so we'll go back to item D1. So do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to discuss D1 and 2 together.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we'll turn it over to the administration just to give a very, very brief synopsis of the 1 and 2, please, and then if we have any questions, we'll take them. But we don't need, we read the material, so you can be brief.
Sure. So this is to replace a hot water heat circulation pump at Hamilton Elementary and a expansion tank, which is tied to the heating system at North Kingstown High School. Both of these projects were recommended award to Gen Plumbing, as they have the contract for the district for HVAC/plumbing repairs.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that the fiscal impact statement says that it's coming from our actual general fund.
Where does it say that?
Where do you see that?
The financial impact on the Hamilton heat hot water pump.
So yes, so that is the account number it will be charged to. In the memo, what I'm requesting is the reappropriation of funds from fund balance held for unanticipated and unbudgeted needs.
Yes, so I'm not okay with that, and
Okay.
I think that we need to find, this needs to come from our general, like, operating budget.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to approve both of these being paid from our operating budget.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second for that? I will second it. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the Hamilton heat pump one and the tank replacement to come out of the general fund. So we'll open it up to discussion.
No, not the general fund, the operating.
The operating fund, excuse me.
I'd like some clarification on exactly what this means.
Can you
What Jen's option is as opposed to the option that you were proposing?
So, do you want me to speak? So what Ms. Lehman is asking us to do is to take it out of the general operating fund for the district.
Okay.
So
Like our budget?
Yep.
out of the budget. So, and we did look at the budget lines in the maintenance and facilities department to see if there was anything. I'm not comfortable, for example, we have expenses that we can't anticipate yet. For example, snow plowing. We don't know what this winter is going to bring, so I'm not comfortable reducing that line. We're still very early. I mean, we're a quarter of the way through the fiscal year, but we're only really 1 month into the real operating year when we have students in front of us. So I'm not comfortable realizing savings from any other area that I have access to. So what I am asking is there's a 2% hold with the designation, and I'm just going to read it, fund balance held for unanticipated and unbudgeted needs. So this is not a budgeted item. We don't have it, we don't have this amount of money in a repair line that we have. We don't have this. The first one, which is the heat circulation pump, is just under $17,000. We don't have that money in the operating budget for.
So Mike,
So
if that's, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to add, these are systems that are coming to end of life. They weren't budgeted. I would consider this, as an area of looking at our fund balance in that area that is dedicated for unanticipated, unbudgeted needs as a system that needs to be repaired, and it's not something that was budgeted in the general operating budget, and that's why that recommendation is being put forward.
Do we know why it wasn't anticipated before this? I mean, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just trying to understand.
So this is just a pump that has failed. So what I can tell you we are going to do is so the first item, and actually the second one as well, the expansion tank, they're just components of a system that have failed. With regards to the pump, because we have this pump in other areas of the school department, we're actually going to, once Jim, if approved, replaces this pump, we're going to have this pump rebuilt so that if in another school this pump goes down, we have a replacement. Then we would just be paying the cost not for the pump, but just for the install of the pump. So I don't know if that helps at all.
How do you know how old the system? Just talking about that Hamilton heat pump. How old because these are parts of greater things, right? And so, if we invest the $17,000 into these pieces, and then something else breaks in the larger one, will the pump that we're putting in this be compatible with newer models?
This is separate from the boiler. So you're talking about, you've got the boiler and the pump. This pump is what, after the water's heated, this is what's moving that heated water through the system.
Yep. So I'm saying if our boiler breaks at Hamilton, in a year, and we buy a nice new boiler, will this pump that is old and has been, is that going to be compatible with newer things?
So if we were to do a replacement, so Bob Carenti and I were just having this discussion with regards to the high school. When they built the high school, they built it with 10 boilers. that's not what's needed now. So we were actually talking about if we went to replace, so we were doing some forward thinking. Do we start looking at, because those boilers are now 25 years old, and we have a few years ago the school committee actually voted to take 2 of those boilers offline to make them hot water heaters, so as not to have to replace hot water heaters. So my long answer is, if you were to replace it with a like system, the pump would work. If you were to do a completely different system, I'm not comfortable saying yes, because that new system might have an integrated pump. So it's kind of it's not a straight yes or no. If the boiler broke and we just dropped a new boiler in place, and this pump was not damaged as a result of the break, then the pump would be okay.
Other questions regarding this?
So that 2% line is like for like if a plane falls down onto a building emergency. It's not for if the boiler breaks emergency. Like, so we should not be taking money from that 2% line to fix unanticipated.
I guess I would just question that based on the policy and how it's written in the policy, because it's stated for unanticipated and unbudgeted needs.
Emergencies, yeah. I mean, we can argue about the interpretation of the policy, but I mean, I went back through unanticipated repairs, and we've not pulled any money from that for those types of things. Those have come out of the general operating budget over the past 2.5 years.
And I could say, if we were in the spring and we had a better feel as to where we were in the fiscal year, we're just so early. We're still bringing staff on. I hesitate to say it a little bit, but fuel prices, diesel prices have somewhat stabilized. So like we might have savings later in the year. It's just too early in the year for me to say, let's cut the diesel line, because right now the diesel prices are X, and we don't, I'm just not comfortable like reallocating money from somewhere else right now.
So
the other thing I would say is once the audit is complete and the surplus is realized, I think the school committee at that point can then allocate. So if we take 32,000, 34,000, somewhere in that range tonight, you could reallocate from the surplus savings to backfill that 2%.
So just to clarify, with the motion that's on the table, which is to have the money, I think the total is 33,178 for these 2 repairs to come out of like the maintenance and facility lines. Like what I'm hearing you say, Mike, is that there is probably technically enough money in those lines to cover this right now, but that you're worried about future expenses that will hit that line. Is that correct or incorrect?
So so I could wipe out the plowing line. I mean, I could start hitting other lines, but I may be back here in December, January saying, we don't have any money to pay lawn beauticians to come plow.
Yeah.
I would say, like, so right now this is a need, right?
Yeah.
We're coming to you saying that there's a need to fix a system within a school, and actually 2 schools, that were not budgeted last year in this current school budget. They need to be fixed. We can't just let them go.
There's no question about
right?
the fact
I'm
that
just
we're
trying
going
to
to
explain
fix
that,
it.
right? I just would like to explain this. So they have to be fixed. We can either A, say we're going to, like the recommendation put forward, take it out of, from the fund balance, out of that 2%, because it's an unexpected, expense. Or we can say, okay, just take it out of the operating budget under the facilities, and in 4 months, relook at that, right? After the audit, relook at that, relook at our budget to actuals, and look at our spending and see, okay, where are we in that line item? And do we have funds in there? Do we have funds that aren't being used in another line item, right? And it could be moved then. We can come back to you and say it needs to be moved.
That's my preference.
Or what we do is we come back later and say, okay, we did use these funds, and now, I'm just going to give an example because we're talking about snow plowing. Snow plowing goes over, and we need to move funds into that.
Because to Mike's concern about it, it's October
that's
1st, and he's
where
not
we are
comfortable moving.
now, right?
I
So
don't think we should be dipping into our general fund on October 1st.
Now, may I ask, would our policy allow us at that point? Because right now, the policy language says for unanticipated, unbudgeted needs. If we were, let's keep picking on snowplowing, if we were to wipe out the snowplowing to pay for this, can we then use that if there was nowhere else to.
We can absolutely take it from or wherever we as a committee vote to take. I mean, and we have other soft allocated money in our general fund. We have money, you know, we had the breakdown of it the other week, that we have money allocated towards, you know, capital money, technology needs, library, CTE. So there is money in that fund that we could allocate to this. But I think my concern is it's October 1st, and you're telling me there's no money in the budget to pay for this in the operating budget. So, and I'm saying it's October 3rd. Like,
So for example, let's pick on another line. We will have electrical needs that will come up in the future because every year we have to bring an electrician. We may have money there now because
because you haven't paid the electrician yet. I get
or we haven't had to call them in.
Right.
So our budget, when we looked at our budget this year, we looked at past years and anticipating. We did not anticipate these large items, so they weren't included in the budget.
Okay, so I think we understand the perspective on that side. We understand the perspective on your concerns, Jen. So are there other questions or clarifications needed from other board members as far as this topic? And the motion on the table is to, not with what was in the memo, to have it come out of the other fund, but to have it come out of the operating fund is the current motion, just to clarify for items, those two first items. So any further clarification on that? Or questions? All right, I'm going to call the question then. So all those in favor of the motion as presented, which is approving the two items to come out of the operating fund, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Abstain?
I'll be an aye.
Okay. So motion carries and those two are done. So we'll go on to item D3. Do we have a motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Second.
Okay, and we will turn it over to the administration. If you'd like to comment on it first before we ask questions.
All right. So we're requesting the approval for the appointment of core shifts for fundamental change to serve as the educational consultant group to coordinate our vision of a graduate work in our district this year. The core shifts group has submitted a comprehensive plan that describes the process and the desired outcomes of their work, and this plan aligns directly with what our identified desired outcomes are. I want to be clear on this. The vision that we're going to establish is going to be our vision, established by our team of our educators as well as our families, our students, and our community partners. We will be the ones who develop this vision. We will be the ones who shepherd this process forward. The role of the consulting group will be to draw on their many, many years of experience working with districts to streamline the work and to maximize the amount of time that our most precious resource, our time, to make sure is spent in the most productive way possible to move the learning forward, to move the thought process forward. The vision of the graduate work is very heady work. It's very important work. It's critical to moving our district forward, not from a high school perspective. It's not done at a school building level, at least not appropriately. It's a district process, and it is a district process that includes team members from K to 12. And so that's why it's important to have an organizing framework in place that leads that work forward and can bring the partners together to move that work into ultimately what is a productive vision. The work we envision happening and the work that we're going to be looking at is going to include really a deep discussion around what are the critical skills and knowledge that our graduates need to be demonstrating when they walk across our stage and receive our diploma. It's critically important because it's obviously aligned to like our school's accreditation at the high school level, but also gives us an opportunity to talk about the world our students are entering into when they leave us and the skills that are needed and how different that is from maybe previous years, previous generations. Again, the consulting group we envision as being critical to this process in terms of shepherding that discussion and providing the framework for that. So we're submitting the request for core shifts. The amount was that they submitted is going to be paid out of it was budgeted for in the Title II grant for $23,400.
Thank you. Questions from the committee?
I have a couple. Is this, what's behind the driver? I wasn't here at the meeting that you gave the presentation on the district strategic goals. I watched it, but I just have some questions. The vision of the graduate, we did some work on that before I resigned from the SIT committee, and I know that they were working on it. What is the reason that that work is not being driven by the SIT teams?
Well, I mean, again, like I just said, the SIT teams, their meeting times are very sparse. The meeting times are very sparse, and they're all separate, disconnected, different times, things like that. Different buildings meet at different times and do different things. So connecting those groups is really difficult to do so in a productive way, where you have organization, where you have a streamlined process, and so on and so forth. The work that I've been experienced with, the work that I've been lucky to be a part of in my experience as a building principal was work that was done district-wide. It is a district vision. It's not a high school vision. It's a district vision. And so the bringing together of constituents from all different grade levels, from all different backgrounds, from all different points of view, if you will, is in my opinion extremely critical to getting a good product in the end that's really going to drive the work that you do in your district. In reality, the vision of the graduate is really out there to function as a guide to decision making. It's as a guide to making decisions with professional development, to program evaluation, to resource allocation, to all things that are curriculum related, that relate to learning that happens throughout your district. It really should be that North Star that kind of serves as your guide point there.
Who would this consultant be working with within the district?
Well, they'd be working with our team, our vision of a graduate team that we established.
And like who would that like be made up of?
Yeah, again, so K-12 educators, students, yep, thank you, parents,
okay,
and then community partners.
And can I jump in? I just want to add to that. Just so folks can see. So I participated in a very similar exercise like this in my previous district when we created our vision of the graduate, and it was focused around the development of our school improvement plans for the district, and we use a facilitator as well. The facilitators coming in to help with that process, and they're not saying here's what your vision is going to be. They're just facilitating that process with the group, and that group is made up of many stakeholders throughout the community, because in the end that vision needs to be what we as North Kingstown believe are the competencies that our students need to have by the time they graduate from high school. And you're not just focusing in on the school improvement team or the high school, you're focusing on a district. Because once you create that vision of the graduate, those competencies and those qualities that you're saying this is what we want our students to have here in North Kingstown are then intertwined throughout all of your schools. So we're really talking about pre-K to 12, right? We're not just talking about what's happening in a high school. And typically, you have in your district's the vision of the graduate at 12th grade. The process that I did in my previous district, we only went up to 8th grade. But however, you're looking at the entire district, you're tying that into your district strategic plan, and you're involving everyone in the community. When I say everyone, you have stakeholders, just like Mr. Mezzanotte said, you have students on that, you have your educators, you have families, you have administrators, you might have other people from the town. I know when I went through it, we put it out there to the community to see who wanted to be involved. And that's the group that is going through really looking at your district and your vision of education in your district, and then creating that vision based upon the competencies you want your students to have. So I know there's a lot out there being said, why are we paying someone to come in? Why is someone from another place going to tell us what our vision is? That's not true at all. That is not the process. We had a facilitator from out of state as well. They were from Connecticut. And they're helping to facilitate that process of everyone doing that work. But in the end, the ideas are coming from the members of the town. So they'll be coming from the members of North Kingstown to create that vision, which then is the vision that you're using throughout all of your schools. And we will be working on those competencies and skills from pre-K through high school. So by the time our students do graduate, that's what they're leaving with.
So just to clarify on the proposal, so we had put out, or the administration had put out an RFP, correct? And that would have, that any company could have bid on?
Correct.
And we put, when did that go out? The RFP was,
It was,
and we only received one. We only received one.
We received 2.
I'm just trying to.
The other bid was much higher, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
They were due by September 22nd, so it was
Yeah,
a month of
okay.
September of when the RFP was put out, and only there were only 2 organizations that
Yeah.
submitted.
Sorry, I was confused because one of the proposals had August on it, so I was confused about the timeline of the correspondence with that company. But that's fine. I guess one of my questions was with the 2 different things, like what we were getting from the companies. Like I saw, I believe for the price to have somebody come in, it looked like a 5-hour prep and then a. I'm just going to that page. Different things. So I guess my question would be like for those 2 different proposals, like was there time, what we were getting, et cetera, like similar or different?
Yeah, so the group that we're recommending talked about approximately like 4 days of service total, which would be like organized meetings with our team. There is some prep involved for them to obviously make good use of that time, and then also travel. So that was what went into the group's proposal.
Yeah.
As far as the group that we're recommending, and they just from a cost standpoint, it was really no comparison. There was nothing dramatically more improved in the group that the cost is much higher.
So, could you just forgive my ignorance?
Okay.
What does the acronym SIT stand for?
SIT?
SIT.
Yeah. School Improvement Team.
School Improvement Team. Okay. You're viewing this not as a replacement for our local teams.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is a supplement or an enhancer that helps to coalesce what all these different stakeholders have. Is that fair?
Absolutely. School improvement teams function at the building level.
Okay.
This group functions beyond the building level. It incorporates stakeholders from, like Dr. Duva said, pre-K through 12, including community partners from outside.
And we haven't decided yet how that committee is being put together, but essentially, what I would imagine happening as we move forward with this, that you're going to your SIT to get members, right? So you're reaching out to your school improvement teams to have members from those school improvement teams be represented on this committee, because your school improvement team should be a very diverse representation of your school, of your building, of your school community. And so we're then reaching out to those school improvement teams to be part of this. Essentially, you are involved in the process.
Do we know when the last time that this was done in the district was?
Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't think it was ever done.
If it was done, we'd have
so what was? This is part of the new. The school's up for our high school's up for
Yes.
accreditation in 2026. Is the year. The vision of the graduates kind of part of the new NIAS standards. Previously, you had like the mission and vision, which was the mission statements that we would create, which were a little bit different. They updated those standards, and now to move towards the vision of the graduate, which is really a more like kind of dynamic, impactful process.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a mission would often just be important, but not as like impactful on the work. The idea behind a vision of a graduate is you're really identifying clearly what the competencies are, the skills that are essential for students to really be able to possess when they leave school, and then backing those up and kind of looking at learning progressions in a pre-K to 12 continuum that's going to lead up to that. So it's really more impactful on like, okay, how is this going to manifest itself in our assessment system? How is it going to manifest itself in our learning experience, the opportunities that students have? What are the different ways that we measure these particular skills that we find so important? And really it generates those good conversations around that. How does it look in 2nd grade, in 4th grade, in 8th grade, in 12th grade, all those things.
Okay, other questions from the committee?
I guess my only other question was the timeline mapped out in this, so it had it starting. Did they come to the admin retreat?
No.
Were they supposed to?
No.
Okay. So based on this timeline, it was starting in August and ending in June. So how would that shift if this were approved?
So we would work on that
yeah.
timeline with them, so they give a sampling timeline of a school year.
Okay, so would it condense or would it extend?
I would say we would be condensing that, and so that way the work is done by the end of the year. We want to have this completed.
And then they talk in here about mapping out a vision for year 2. Is this going to be a multi-year thing, or is this a one and
This is a 1 year.
Okay.
Last question, can you just clarify the funding source as far as
Title
like,
II.
yeah, but like, can you clarify that for the committee
Sure.
about, so say, for example, we decided that we did not approve this, like, does that money get reallocated to something else? Does it, like what, that's what I kind of want clarification with them on, is understanding
Sure.
that piece
So,
of it.
so when we wrote the Title II submission for the CRP
Yep.
last year, there was a dollar amount that we identified as going towards this. The Title II is for professional development. So we identified the dollar amount as going towards this initiative, which is part of our strategic plan. And so that's where the alignment is in terms of the funding source. I'm not sure if that's...
Yeah, that's
So if you don't approve it, right, this is coming out of the Title II grant,
Yeah.
which that is part of our consolidated resource plan through the state and federal funding. If you don't approve it and that money is not spent when amendment time comes around, we would have a chance to reallocate those funds to something else. Title II is for, it is used for professional development, curriculum uses, retention for teachers, coaching, and there's a number of ways that you can use your Title II funding. Mainly it's to support teaching and curriculum. And this would be a connection to that because you're doing a vision that then is going to wrap around what it is that is impacting instruction and teaching and learning.
With this being the last year for Right to Read, are the teachers in our district able to take this on this year?
Yeah,
So this would, you're not going to have every single teacher doing this, right? And so not every teacher is doing Right to Read. And so it would be put out there for those that are looking to participate in this work. I would not say push this off for another year based on that, because there is very important work that we need to do around our school improvement plans. As you know, the school improvement plans had to be submitted to RIDE. They had to get reviewed and then sent back, and then that's where in the process now that they were sent back to us. This would all be related to that work. And as Marie was saying, it's part of the NIAS requirements. So I wouldn't say just push it off based on that. I think that we have a very large population here of educators that could participate in this work, as well as other educators that are participating in the Right to Read. And I appreciate you saying that, because the Right to Read is a very huge task that our educators are going through right now.
Rob, you participated in this as a principal in Lincoln, correct?
Yes.
What was the, because that is honestly a concern of mine with fairly new administration and different things. Like, I'm worried about bandwidth and time and priorities, and I believe in this concept. I believe in pre-K to, I go past 12 with my education lens, but just in the purposes of here. But I really fundamentally believe in this, but I am also concerned about administrative bandwidth and participant bandwidth and trying to balance like the different priorities. And I also understand that this is really important for the accreditation, but it does sound to me like something that does it technically have to happen this year, could happen next year. I'm just trying to work through that in my brain. So I would love your perspective on kind of what that lift looked like as a principal and what you saw in Lincoln.
As far as the bandwidth is concerned, I think that I agree with you. It is a challenge. I think that that's part of the reason why I feel the consultancy group is really helpful, because I think that that's going to provide more productivity with the time that we have.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, that was really important, because when we moved this process forward where I was previously, the meeting time that we had was ready from the get-go, because it was prepared by a group that had a wealth of experience preparing this kind of work, and it was almost like, again, it was like almost like just setting the table for us to then fill with like what we felt was really critical to what met our needs, and that's really what it was. It wasn't then bringing any like specifics as like, here's the plan. It was here's like the layout of how the session will go, here are the questions we want to ask, here are the discussions we want to have, and that was all kind of there, and then we would fill in the good stuff, the specifics. So I felt like it was a very good use of time. As far as like the timing of it now, again, I think it's important to start this conversation now. Accreditation's happening in 2026. We have significant needs that are happening across the board. We have secondary regulations that are coming up that are new next year for the class of 2028 with kids coming in, which is going to be a significant, a significant lift for our middle and high schools. I think the timing's right now.
It also takes time once you develop the vision of the graduate, right? It's not just something you create and then, oh yeah, we have a vision of the graduate, and there's a document, right? It's very much like our school improvement plans, right? Those should be working documents that we are using in the schools that would be aligned to this work that we're doing. So even after we go through this process, within this year of creating the vision, you're then working on where are those connections happening within your curriculum and happening within the school and the teaching of those competencies. And how are you taking those competencies and then aligning them to what's happening in the classrooms? So it's a process. When I went through it, it was a year of creating it, and then you're looking at how you're making those connections within the school, and from there it develops. So it's not just something that just happens overnight. So looking at it and saying, oh, you have time, you want to start something like this early, and you really want to, pay attention to the work we're doing, and really make it so that it is something that we're really taking on, putting into the schools, and it's something that's active, and it's a working document and vision that we're saying we're creating and believing in and putting in place within our schools for our students.
If I get one more thing just to piggyback on that. Some of the most valuable work that I participated in with this process came actually the year after it was done, because what we saw was from the creation of the vision, once that's established, that leads into really rich discussions that happen at school improvement teams around how this really takes shape in our assessment system. So like, for example, the high school has a senior project. The senior project can be looked at through the lens of the vision to say, how well are we really meeting this vision through this project? The same thing can be done in assessments that we have, again, at middle levels, elementary levels, etc. It generates very rich discussion among teachers, among stakeholders and school improvement teams and things like that. So just to follow up on what Dr. Dua just said, I think that's a very valuable part of the process as well.
Did you see greater, I'm drawing a blank on the word I want to use, participation in your school improvement teams in Lincoln at all levels by the stakeholders that have participated in the vision of a graduate after the process?
I can't really speak because I was at the high school,
okay.
So I did see definitely more participation and engagement there.
Okay.
I can't speak for the other schools. That was a different role I had.
Right.
But I can speak to at the high school level. It definitely made for a more productive and rich discussion because we had something firm that we were now working off of. Yep.
Okay. Any further questions? No. All right. So we have a motion on the table right now for discussion. Does anyone want to make a different motion?
I'd like to move to approve the vision of the graduate RFP bid for, is it Belburn Consulting Group?
No, Core
Shifts, excuse me.
Thank you.
And
I like how fast you jumped on that one. Okay, so the recommendation of the administration, the bid there.
Yes, that's what I meant. My apologies.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think just one thing. I'm going to vote in affirmative of this motion. I do think that it's worth a discussion, though, making sure that making sure that we're really solid on the strategic plan and different things, because I know some of that happened kind of before Dr. Duva was here, and so I want to make sure that we go into this process like very secure, both on the school committee side and the administration side of kind of what they're working off of. So that is just one thing that I would like us to look at before like we get too deep into this, because I don't want us to go down. I want to make sure that if we're utilizing a consultant, which I do think can be really valuable, that we are getting the most out of that and getting what we need for the district. So, any further discussion?
I just want to say thank you for the work. Coming into this meeting, I had seen some criticism, and we heard some this evening, and you put my mind to rest. You two are professionals, and you know what you're doing, and I appreciate you coming in here and explaining this.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing more about it and learning more as we move forward on that. So thank you for answering our questions. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on to item 4. Yeah.
I will make a motion to approve, but I had.
Nope, just that.
No.
Start there, and then we get a second.
Okay.
I would like to make an approval.
I
Yeah,
would
so
make a
just make a
motion
motion
to
to approve.
approve.
Yep. Okay. Second.
Second.
Great. And then we'll open a discussion. I'll turn it over to Muslima. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Do you want? But
When have you not?
I always first. Someday, Tom. We appreciate Jen's diligence. I always like to let the administration just give a quick. Is there anything that you'd like us to know about this first before we ask our question? Okay, we read it, so we
don't think there's anything to add from what's in the.
No.
I just took the opportunity. Okay, no worries. Okay.
My one question or two is how many mats do each of the teams have?
Yeah, of course.
And how long do they last typically?
Actually, so I know Wickford got a new mat approximately 5 years ago.
Yeah, because I remember in 2019 we bought one, and then it looked like it had been since like 2011 before that.
Yeah, let me.
I don't need an answer now. Just if you could just.
So I did ask the athletic director this question. Let me just, because I don't have it off the top of my head.
And it looks like we always split them 3 ways, like booster, wrestling, and the athletic department.
2011 predates me, so
I
don't know. Yeah.
If you could just get back to me with an answer, I don't need one now. Like I said, I'll make the motion to approve, but I was just curious.
Sorry, Jen. I, to be honest, did not pay attention when you asked your question. Can you repeat what you were
I just wanted
inquiring
to
about?
know how many mats each of the. I asked my former wrestler, and he gave me an answer, but I wanted to have like an official answer.
Yeah.
How many mats each of the like WMS, DMS in the high school? Like how many mats were there, and how long they lasted?
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
What is the life expectancy of a mat?
Of a wrestling mat, because those suckers get nasty. But that's fine. I don't need an answer now.
Yeah.
So you want to call the
But
question?
it looks like, I was just clarifying. So in the memo that we received, it looked like the high school ones are over 14 years old and the DMS mats are 23 years old.
Yeah, because I knew we bought one for Wickford. I knew we bought one for the high school, so I was just curious.
Yep.
Because they're not cheap.
No. Just one quick question. For our wrestling programs, all students have the opportunity to participate in wrestling?
I believe wrestling is one of the no-cut sports. It doesn't mean that they necessarily get to wrestle in a meet per se, because there's weight matchups and there's limitations on that.
Yeah.
But my understanding is it's been a no-cut.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Any further questions on this one?
No.
Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is the personnel items revisions for certified A and B. Does someone want to make a motion?
You wanted to make a joint motion?
Nope.
Nope, so separate motion.
Yep.
Okay, so I will make a motion that we approve certified employee A's contract changes as presented.
I will second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously, thank you. And then do I have a second motion for employee B?
I will make a motion to table employee B's contract.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, there's no discussion on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much, and we'll get further information on that later. Okay, moving on to reports. The first one is special report A. So anything there, Dr. Duva? If we have it in the, if we don't need to.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm right.
No worries. I believe this is just the one that we get. Yep, you're right there. Yeah, yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm right. No, this is just the personnel update of all the employees that have been hired since the summertime up until now. It is way too long of a list for me to go through each one, but that is there for you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any questions from the committee regarding what we were presented with? No. I just had one quick question about it. And so obviously these are the ones that we've hired. At a future meeting, could we get a similar report but the vacancies, just so that we can be aware of what's not been filled thus far? But I do want to commend the administration and the building administrators for really doing great work to get the positions that needed to be filled. Okay. There's no action on that, it's just a report. So any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on. The next item on the agenda is subcommittee reports, and so we have the DEI subcommittee report.
So over the past several months, the DEI subcommittee has been talking as a group about what we think the ideal makeup would be as far as the number and type of members, the term limits for membership, and the criteria for selecting new members. At our 9/20 meeting, we made a motion to recommend a revised committee makeup and application process to the full school committee, which is on the agenda for our meeting tonight. We also continued our discussion on the equity audit and prioritizing the action items arising from that. We've already sent through our top 4 recommendations way back in February of this year. And at our next meeting, we expect to send through our next 5. Our next meeting in the DEI subcommittee is scheduled for October 18th.
Okay, thank you. Any questions regarding that report? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next one, which is the policy subcommittee report, and we'll turn it over to Ms. Again.
So at the 10-2 policy subcommittee meeting, we discussed the district's transgender, gender nonconforming, and transitioning students policy as part of RIDE's annual health review. In 2016, RIDE developed guidance for Rhode Island schools on transgender and gender nonconforming youth. The NKSD policy was created in 2018 in order to be in compliance with the Commissioner's regulation regarding requiring all districts to develop policy based on that guidance. While we are in compliance with that, we can do a better job of specifically naming the protections for our transgender and gender nonconforming students, and as such we'll be drafting a proposed revision to our policy, which does so based on what's in use in other districts. That's also in keeping with a review that RIDE is currently undertaking to ensure that there's adherence to their guidance. We also discussed the advisory committees and liaison policy with the intent of standardizing, to the extent possible, the process for becoming a member of a school committee subcommittee, as well as defining the parameters around how members are selected, qualifications, term limits, etc. Both these policies, along with the drug and alcohol, teen dating violence, and non-unit emergency sick leave bank, will be on the agenda for our next meeting, which is scheduled for Monday, October 16th.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions regarding that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to unfinished business. I do not believe we have anything for item A. But
no.
Okay, item B. Turn that over to Dr. Dupa.
So,
actually, sorry, can I get, it's under unfinished business. Can I get a motion to discuss?
I'm going to make a motion to table that.
Okay.
This is which one? C?
B.
B.
B1. So we have a motion to table. We need a second? Okay, so we don't have a second on that. Do we have a different motion for this item?
Make a motion to discuss.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, so open up discussion, and I'll go to Dr. Duba.
Sure. So this was on our last agenda for approval. We're just asking for the allocation of where the fund's coming from. So similar to the other items we were talking about earlier. This is an item that needs replacement. It was not an item that was in the budget, in the general fund operating budget for this year, and so we are making that request that it comes out of the fund balance of unanticipated, non-budgeted items.
This was approved at the last meeting out of the general fund, like our actual operating budget.
Was that question, Jen, or?
It's a statement.
Yeah, okay. So, Ken, could you just clarify, kind of what?
Yeah, it shouldn't have been the general fund. That was an error. So it shouldn't have been coming out of the general fund. It should have been out of the fund balance. Right. So that's why we put it back on the agenda.
Right, so that's, I wanted to table it till we could.
So we
make
could.
a motion to table.
Yeah. Yeah, but sorry, no, and that's fine. I just can you just finish the thought just so I understand?
Well, because it's already been approved. It was
Yeah.
approved out of the other budget. So until we straightened out, like, the bigger issue of what we were doing with that in general, I think it was best to table this. So, because we've already approved the repair.
Yep. So I guess a question, Ken, and kind of based on the other conversations too, I think it would be helpful for the committee to kind of get a, like, I don't know if y'all, what do y'all call it in K-12, but like a Q1 snapshot, kind of like where we are in the budget for the different lines, and maybe some areas of concern, especially because you weren't here when we developed the budget. I think it's important to maybe just take a look at that and see if there were some areas that the previous administration maybe had it allocated that we need to take a look at, kind of in a general sense, because I want to make sure that we're not doing this for every single thing for the rest of the school year. That seems like tiring.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Think, that is something that we need to look at.
Yeah.
I know that is something that our business department is working on with doing the budget to actuals, and they're also getting ready for the audit that's coming up. So we'll have information from that as well. But that, the audit piece takes time. But I know they're also working on putting together budget to actuals and where we are right now during the school year.
And so with the approval that we had last week, is there an opportunity that we could get more information before we approve this reappropriation and not delay the work starting or the process for ordering?
I think it would be similar to what we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
If we keep it where it's coming out of the general fund, at some point we're going to have to come back and say that, using the funds coming out of, general fund within facilities, at some point we're going to be coming back and saying that other items are going to have to come out of that fund.
Because with tonight and in this one, we're at 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I did the math. I like making, I totally understand like what we need to do, but I need data. Like I need to understand like the lines and like kind of where we misappropriated money and if there's I
wouldn't say that, and I would not use the word misappropriated. I'm not saying anyone misappropriated. That's very different than, I just want to make that clear. Misappropriation of money is very different from how something was budgeted from last year. Right. And I think the question that Ms. Lim is bringing up is that in the past, the committee and the administration did not have to make requests through there because there were funds in other areas within the budget. Yeah. And I'm going to say is based on what I've learned, the budget that was put together this year was done differently than how the budget was done in the past. Yeah. And we don't have funds in other allocations to move around to take care of this year.
I think what I'm trying to say is I would like to see that.
Yes.
Like I totally believe you, but I think for me to make an educated decision to approve something out of fund balance and like that's to me a big decision, and so I need a little bit more data to be able to say in good confidence that this is where the money should come from. So that is what I am requesting.
Can I ask you a question? Like something like this, that's $70,000. Is that to me seems like a true capital expense? And was this on the CIP? Like, should it have been? Is this something that could be paid for, like, from the bond that we still have money left over for?
No. So the 2018 bond was written differently than the proposed upcoming bond. The 2018 bond had specific projects.
Okay.
This was not one of those specific projects.
Okay.
Okay.
HVAC at the high school was one of the specific projects, but at Stony Lane it was not.
Okay, understood. So going back to my original question, if we tabled this item at is it going to negatively impact students? Is that 2 weeks going to negatively impact students? Is what I'm
No,
asking.
we've already signed the agreement,
Yeah.
so the
So I can
units-
I can wait and get more information and not
the
negatively
units
impact
on order.
students.
We're in that 8 to 12 week
Yeah.
lead time.
And it was approved last
Yeah,
time
we
from a
approved it
different
last
budget.
meeting.
We're just
Yeah.
asking for it to come out of a different budget line.
Yeah.
So it's already been approved, we're just asking for it to come out
Yeah.
of a different budget.
All right, so I'm gonna make an motion to table this. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah, thanks. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And Jen, I acknowledge that you tried to do that earlier. I just wanted to kind of
No,
talk it
that's
through.
fine.
And
Yeah,
Robert,
we need to get
Robert
there.
does
It's
not
not-
let us
yes.
when we make that motion. So, and I appreciate. I just want to make sure we have the information to make it. So we will work through that and to try to set up you all up for success. Because in my world, like I would anticipate things like that happening, and so we should make sure that we're prepared for that, so that we don't have to be surprised by the surprising things that might happen. Moving on, item C, anything there? No?
No.
Okay. D, can I get a motion for D, I?
I'll make a motion to discuss. No, I'll make a motion to approve. No, there, yeah, I guess, to approve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the policy deferred compensation plan as presented, and we have a second. I'll open up for discussion. Jen, do you want to just remind us what we're doing here?
There's absolutely nothing different about this policy. It was one of the ones that we reviewed when we were reviewing the employee benefit policies. It's just on here so that we can update the dates.
Okay, so all we're going to do is note that we reviewed it and no
Yes.
changes were necessary, so that folks know that it was reviewed per our current new practice. And so, any further discussion on this?
No.
It was a general question, not just like any other. No. Okay, great. Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving this with no changes, just noting that we looked at it, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Do we have a motion for letter E?
Make a motion to approve.
I'm gonna second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve in a second. Discussion. Just to give some context, this was something that kind of was looked at in executive session, but we wanted to make sure to vote on it in open. Anything else?
Just make one observation, based on what I know about the billing rates here and being an attorney in private practice, these are very modest rates. They are not something that I view as taking advantage of the taxpayer for this community in any way. And so I'm going to vote to approve.
Great, thank you so much. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. And then item F, do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second? And again, just a reminder, a second doesn't mean that you're voting in affirmative, it just means that you're willing to discuss the motion.
Just to approve the.
No, I make it, is approving upholding?
That's what, I just want to make, I
No,
want
then
to
I
make
do
clarity.
not, I take that back.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
so there's the parent
Okay, so
appeals
Ms.
before
Lehman
you.
has withdrawn her motion, and then we'll turn over to, so,
I think it's a motion to deny the appeal or to uphold the appeal.
Which one is it?
Or you can
no,
uphold the
so if you
superintendent's
were,
recommendation.
so if you made a motion to uphold the decision that was made by the superintendent.
Why don't we do it that way? That's cleaner.
Yeah.
You know what the superintendent's recommendation to you is, so you either uphold that recommendation or you deny that recommendation.
Yeah. Okay, so we have, does everyone understand? No, okay, look at their faces. So I will make a motion to deny the recommendation.
Of the superintendent.
Yep, of the superintendent for the student appeal.
I will second that.
Okay, so then we can open it up for discussion, if there's any further discussion. Okay, before I call the question, just to clarify, if you were voting an affirmative, it means that you are granting the request from the student.
Right.
Does everyone understand
Yes.
what we're voting on?
Yes.
So if you vote yay, that means that you are voting on what the student appeal was.
Yes.
Not the recommendation from this, based on our policy. You sure, everybody?
Yes.
Everybody's clear? Okay. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, those opposed? Okay, any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the MOA for the SRO. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm open up for discussion. Dr. Duva, any context you want to give to this one?
Yeah, just from the last meeting, Mr. Hennius and I, we reviewed the resources that Ms. Lima provided to us. We made some changes to that. We reviewed that with the police department, with the captain, and they went through what we had. We had agreement between both the school and the police department with the changes that were made that we are putting forward to the committee for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Questions or discussions from the committee?
I see in the attachments that there is what appears to be a pamphlet or a booklet from the Department of Justice that I don't believe we had in the last presentation that I was here for. But I think that's a pretty important document and I'm pleased that our local department, I'm not surprised, but I'm pleased that they are endorsing.
That didn't come from us. Yeah, let's clarify. That came from us.
Yes.
Yeah. So Tom, just to clarify, I asked Jules to upload and attach that just to give the committee more education. Dr. Duva had looked at it, myself had looked at it, Mr. Hennessy had looked at it, but I did feel that's important that the whole committee be able to see a document like that.
But my understanding is that our department does adhere to these.
They do not.
They do not?
Well, so
I'm not sure that's.
my recommendation for this agenda item is that the school committee look at the document as the draft that we have presented before us, compare it to the guiding principles and other resources that might talk about that, and then at the next meeting share any questions or concerns with Dr. Duva in the meantime, and then have perhaps another draft at our next meeting. I feel like for me, looking at that guiding principles document and some of the things that I was able to read about SROs, I feel like there's an opportunity for a couple more things to be put in to the MOU to make sure that we're protecting students and those sort of things. And so that is kind of where I'm at with the document, although I greatly appreciate the work that Mr. Hennessy and Dr. Duva did on it. And I feel like it's closer, but I feel like we need a little bit more discussion. But I wanted to make sure that the committee had all of the, at least some additional resources to look at to make an informed and educated decision, because we had not provided that previously to the full committee. Further discussion?
I will concur with your view that I definitely think it's getting closer to something that will work for the district. I like the fact that there was language put in. It seemed, because I think originally in the earlier drafts it seemed a little one-sided and it was heavy-handed on the police department side, and this is seems to be at least an attempt to have a more shared responsibility between the districts. So I appreciate the negotiating that has been going on, but I do appreciate having this document to go back. So I would agree that we should look at this and go on to the next meeting before making a final decision.
Is that an official motion to table?
Sure, I'll make that a motion to table.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of tabling the MOA for SRO, please say aye.
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 Okay, thanks so much. And then moving on to new business. Do I have a motion for item A?
I'm going to make a motion to table that.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, seeing no second, do I have another motion for item A?
I will make a motion to discuss the item.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and we'll open up to discussion. Dr. Duver, would you like the opportunity to give some context to this
Sure.
one?
So the reason that it's being tabled is that because we
Propose, it's technically not.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Proposing to table this because it was asked regarding, we're putting forward a contract addendum, but the actual contract had expired in June, and we are working with ESS to get a new contract with them. It was something that I was unaware of until it was brought to my attention that it expired. And it appears as though the contract has been rolled over, but we do not have a copy of that contract. And so we worked on trying to get that for this evening, and we need to wait to hear from them tomorrow, hear from the ESS tomorrow. They weren't able to work through with their legal department to get that to us. But at some point, what I believe from looking at the information we have, it was rolled over. We just never received that contract.
Sure. Do you want to give any? Thank you for that, and that would be, I think, helpful in this conversation. But would you just want to give just a quick context to, quick context, just so that they have some reference for our next discussion.
So the reason why I was asking for an addendum to the contract is because currently we don't have a separate rate of pay for long-term substitutes, and long-term substitutes currently are being paid as a day-to-day sub. And I think, as we all know, that when you take on a job as a long-term substitute, you are now responsible for the full teaching of that course. You're responsible for the planning, the grading. There's much more of a heavier role that substitute is providing. And typically, in most places, you have a different rate of pay. And so I'm requesting that we do provide a different rate of pay for the substitute rate. The request is for $165. The day-to-day rate for substitute is $145. I'm asking for putting in a recommendation that the long-term substitute rate would be $165. And that would benefit our district for trying to retain people and get people to come in to take on those positions. It's definitely what I'm seeing as a need in the district with the members that are out due to whatever reason it may be.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions?
Does that rate compare to other districts and what they're paying for long-term?
It is comparison. Yeah, it is.
On the low end, the high end, mid-range?
I would say it's mid-range.
Okay.
Is there an easy way? Is there some nice association that does a nice chart of what subs make?
No, we have to do that on our own. And
ESS can't give us that information for the districts that they work with?
Have that. But I mean, definitely, they would have it for the districts they work with. I don't know where else ESS is used in Rhode Island. I know the districts around here locally, they hire their own subs.
I think the last time we did that, we had to piecemeal it.
I'm not sure that would be accurate information.
Please note, my question was, what would the ease be? Not that wasn't an actual directive. I was just curious if that was out there somewhere. Could you give us a little context of just what the rationale between, why did you pick that number?
That is the rate that ESS has for long-term pay. So when you look at the costs, right? Right now, that's I was told it was a discretionary rate of $165, meaning that that's where it is. But it was never approved by a school committee to use that rate, and so we would need that approved by you for that contract. That's why we asked for the addendum. But the $165 is coming from ESS of what they would use.
Got it. Okay. Any further discussion or questions?
Make a motion to table.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item B. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Jen because this is a recommendation coming from your subcommittee. Do you want to give us just a quick synopsis of it? Do we have the attachments to this?
No.
Okay.
So, as mentioned in the DES subcommittee report, we've been working for the past several months to come up with what we believe is the ideal makeup for the DES subcommittee, and what the process should look like in order to become a member. We also discussed term lengths and the importance of ensuring the whole committee does not turn over at once so that there's some consistency and experience throughout the transitions. As I mentioned in the policy subcommittee report, that body is reviewing the policy governing advisory committee in general. And as chair of both, I believe it makes sense to consider these recommendations from the DEI subcommittee as part of that larger review before asking for the full school committee to act, though of course I will defer to Dr. Earle on that. I would like to note, however, that the members of the DEI subcommittee have been fulfilling these roles for over 2 years. I have some members who have expressed a desire to step down, but they don't want to do so until a process for filling their seats has been defined. So to be respectful to them, I would like to be able to solidify the process for this particular subcommittee as expeditiously as possible.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the committee? My recommendation would be, and I very much appreciate the DEI subcommittee taking a look at this and giving us their recommendations, as I know that this subcommittee went through an official process, like for their subcommittee membership, et cetera. And so my recommendation is that we defer their recommendations to the policy subcommittee and have that be shared with at that level so that the policy subcommittee can take their recommendations into account as kind of making a broader recommendation to the school committee regarding all membership terms and whatnot. I know we've had some different conversations at the different subcommittee levels, and that is definitely a gap in policy. And so I would like to make a motion to basically have the DEI subcommittee membership process recommendations deferred to the policy subcommittee. Do I understand that? Okay. Any discussion on that? All right, so all we are voting on right now is just basically taking it from DEI and moving their recommendations over to policy, and then policy will give us recommendations. So we're not approving any of the recommendations they said. We're not doing anything there. We're just moving it procedurally, which feels silly, but here we are.
No, it makes sense.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. One thing I do want to say is I greatly want to thank the members of all our subcommittees, and particularly the DEI subcommittee, for their service to the district. I know that is a lot of time to be on a subcommittee for all of them. And so I definitely think we should try to prioritize this with our policy work. Because I heard you say, the part about how people, have been on for a couple of years and would like to roll off, but would like to know that process before doing so. So in respect to our volunteers, I would like us to try to look at that swiftly, if you will. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. And then move on to a proposed resolution. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Can we just make a motion to
I was going to approve.
adopt the resolution, and then we can
Yeah.
always amend it, we could deny that, but just to kind of move things.
That's fine.
Okay, so who wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution.
A second.
Okay, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Lima to present the draft resolution, and then I'll open it for discussion.
So this was a resolution that was brought forward to me by the Rhode Island Freedom Association, which is Freedom, and they are part of the nationwide. They're the nationwide branch of the American Library Association, United Against Book Bans. I'm sure everybody knows this week is Banned Books Week. I know it's late, so I'll be quick, but a couple things that I didn't know, so maybe other people don't know, but Banned Book Week has been going on since 1982. I had no idea it was that long. It's an annual celebration of intellectual freedom, which was started to oppose censorship of books. The American Library Association is 146 years old. It's a nonpartisan organization, and it's tasked with supporting 123 libraries. They used to be very non-controversial, but this year state library systems in Montana, Missouri, and Texas have disaffiliated with them, and 9 other states are considering doing the same. This year, there have been 695 attempts to censor library materials and services, and documented challenges to 1,915 unique titles. That's a 20% increase from last year, and those past 2 years are the highest number of challenges that have been recorded since they have started keeping track more than 20 years ago. Most of those challenges were to books written by or about a person of color or a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. The top reason cited for book challenges is sexual content, although queer stories are often labeled as sexual simply for mentioning gender identity or sexuality. It's some people ask me, why are you bringing this forward now? Like, we don't currently have any book challenges here in North Kingstown, although anybody who's been here for more than a year or two knows that we have faced them here in the past. But book bans in libraries and classrooms, they don't just affect one child because they aren't implemented in a neutral or an unbiased way. They're driven by a particular set of values or views that are then enforced onto all students. And, parents unquestionably can decide that they don't want their child reading a certain book, but they do not have that right to limit another child's access to it. So why is it important, in my opinion, to come out and support this resolution right now? Well, for one thing, because freedom to read is essential to our democracy. It's at the basis for it. And because of places like Urbandale, Iowa, where they're passing laws that define which books are deemed age appropriate, and they're pulling them out of the school libraries when they don't think that they are. Because of places like Carroll County, Maryland, where they're facing challenges of upwards of 58 books by a local chapter of a national organization, which is going around district to district all over the country and doing the same thing. Because, like the ALA president says, the antidote to the contagion of censorship is public vocal support for our libraries. And mostly because because what Michael, who is a Solano County librarian, and if you all are not following this person on Instagram, you need to, because he is amazing. I'm going to end with this, and that'll be it. And what he says is, as a librarian, I am honored to see how important books are to student success. Books must be accessible. Books are joy. Books are stories. Every student has a story. Every student deserves to have their voice be heard. Students deserve to see themselves represented on school bookshelves and on library bookshelves, to see their classmates, friends, and families represented. I love libraries. I love school. As kids are going back to school today and every day, we all must work together to ensure that students feel supported, feel loved, feel that they belong in school and libraries, so that they'll grow up to exercise their freedom to read, to encourage others to always learn and to be their true, authentic selves and become remarkable human beings. And that's why it's so important every day, and especially this week, to make sure that there aren't any books in this district that we are not letting on the shelves. So thank you for considering the resolution.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion?
How do you top that?
I know. As the lawyer, you should feel like you could have, closing remarks, opening remarks? No. I will
say that I do appreciate the author, one of our local authors, children's book authors, coming in to speak to this and asking for our support in this. And I think anything that we can do, having met the librarians at my children's schools and things, and to see their passion for the books that they put in these areas for our children to read, and to help them find books, that are based on, like you said, seeing themselves in these stories and having the access to that is so important to them. So I think anything we can do to support the librarians, both in the schools and just our local town librarians, I think is always a beneficial cause.
Librarians are magical. They really are.
Further discussion? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lima, for bringing this to our attention. I will be voting in the affirmative of the resolution. And again, a resolution is just, the support, kind of a public support. So it doesn't, it's not an impact on policy or budget, but just kind of that piece. And bring the attention to Banned Book Week. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, I will call the question to adopt this resolution as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Correspondence?
Yep, that's me too.
And as you're pulling that up, just a reminder, the North Kingstown School Committee does have a centralized email address that our community members can utilize to send all of us messages with ease. At these meetings, we do share out kind of just the topic, just to get a sense of the community and be transparent about what we're receiving. And so Ms. Lee will read that out for us since our last meeting.
On September 26th, from Renee Reese regarding the public forum tonight on school and town projects. On 9/26, Edward Renahan regarding Dr. Duda's comments tonight. And on 9/29, from a student email referencing the President of the United States. And that was it.
Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.